This is The Toss-Up, where we take a look at some of the topics facing the world of college sports and give a little bit of the history behind some of them. We're not trying to change your mind. We just want to dive deeper into the topics that keep you tuned in to the teams you love. What should constitute when a football player is ready to go to the NFL? The current eligibility rules state that a player must be 3 years removed from high school, or said player has to use all of their college eligibility. But is this fair for the elite college football players? In virtually every other sport, if a player is good enough, they can jump right from high school to the professional ranks. Baseball, hockey, soccer, golf, you name it. And in the case of basketball, yes, you have to be 1 year removed from high school, but players can go overseas and play professionally for a year if that suits them best. So why does it take so long to make it to the National Football League? And that's a topic of conversation for this week's episode of The Toss-Up. And we introduced the panel, and we have a couple of new-looking guys over here. On my right, we have Ben Wittenstein taking a break from his radio duties. Yeah, sports director for WIUX, so glad that you can do some television stuff with us.
Thank you for having me.
And then Austin Matricardi, usually behind the scenes working on the show, but it's good that you're here.
Yep.
We appreciate
it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It should be good. So, guys, let's just get right into it. Austin, I'll start with you. Do you think that college players should have to wait 3 years to go to the NFL?
Well, I think that that's really, case-by-case basis, really, because if you look at guys like Jadeveon Clowney, he was probably ready to go to the league after his freshman year, maybe. But he had to wait. He risked the injury. He lost millions of dollars potentially. It shortened his NFL career. He probably should have gone. But then, there are certain guys that take longer to develop. It should be a case-by-case thing.
Yeah, and there's a lot of players that feel after high school that they can make it right to the NFL. Adrian Peterson, his senior year in high school, rushed for over 2,900 yards, and a lot of scouts thought that he can make that jump to the NFL. They think that the running back's the easiest. Ben, what's your stance on this? Do you think 3 years is suitable enough?
I'm a big proponent of just letting people do what they want to do. So in terms of athletes, if you feel like you're prepared to go to the NFL right after leaving high school, go for it. It's the same with basketball. If you feel like you can play in the NBA with the big boys after leaving high school, go for it. Most likely you're not going to succeed, but I don't think it should be up to the league to determine that. I think that should be a personal decision. And I know the league is kind of worried about their brand decreasing because of the lack of talent coming in if people think that they can just enter from high school. But that's up to the teams and the GMs to determine if the player that they're going to get is suitable for their team and if coming out of high school is actually a viable option or a viable option for their team to draft.
Well, there's been some alternatives outside of the NCAA and outside of the NFL, and a lot of other owners out there, they form their own football leagues. There's been the United States Football League, which was founded by our now President Donald Trump. There's the United Football League, which didn't have more than 5 teams in it. It just disbanded back in 2012. There's the creation of a new football league, the PAC Pro Football League, and this is going to start to commence next year in 2018 in the springtime. And it was created by Don Yee, Tom Brady's agent in the NFL, and also former wide receiver Ed McCaffrey. And this has brought up a lot of speculation because they're planning on paying players $50,000, a full salary, to choose their league over the NCAA. And this would give them pretty much the footing to get right into the NFL without having to take classes and go through that process. So, Ben, I'll ask you for this. Do you think that this is going to be a viable option and a potential rival to the NCAA?
I mean, it's definitely enticing for someone to just come out of high school and think, wow, I have a $50,000 paycheck waiting for me if I play in this league. But they have to be careful because you look at it, if you look at it in this sense, you get paid $50,000 for every couple years that you play. You try to leave the PAC Pro League, try to make it in the NFL. What if you're not good enough? The NFL doesn't draft you. I mean, what do you do then? You go back to school, and if you go back to school, go back to college, you've already gotten paid $50,000. You're not considered an amateur anymore by the NCAA, so you're not going to be able to play football in college. You'll be able to get an education. You have, obviously, the money to get the education, but your football career is over. So I guess in a sense it is like college where it's taking a chance, but I feel like in college you have more visibility, more traditional visibility from a lot of the GMs and a lot of the scouts out there.
Yeah, Austin, how do you feel about that?
Well, piggybacking off of what you just said, there is more visibility in college, but in college what we see is a lot of 4-star recruits coming out, hire guys, and they just get buried when they go to Alabama or LSU. There's a lot of talent at those schools, so some guys just get buried, and they never really see a lot of playing time. This league is actually set up where they're going to make sure that everybody gets playing time. There's visibility. So it's actually, I really like their setup. I like the way that they've got it organized.
You have to also look at it in the sense of players who are coming out of low-income areas, from low-income families who may be good enough to play in college, but this $50,000 looks real good for them right away, right out of high school. That can help a lot of players who may come from lower-income families to get that paycheck right away.
Oh yeah, and a lot of players, I mean, money is the most important thing. Former Auburn running back Peyton Barber, he decided to leave the Auburn a year early. He was a junior, declared for the draft this year, and he doesn't necessarily have the skill. He's not projected to get drafted, but he needed to go because his mom is homeless and he needs the money. So this would be an alternative option. And I'm kind of curious because Ed McCaffrey is one of the founders for the league. If Christian McCaffrey, if this league was founded before he went to Stanford, do you think that like a player of that elite status would want to go to the PAC Pro League instead of going to the NCAA and having to take classes where it might not be necessary? Because in the PAC Pro League, there's also a stipulation where they will get a year of tuition at a junior college and they'll get books and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. If you're an elite player, I mean, do you want to go and take this chance instead? I mean, there's really a lot to bring on that.
Well, actually, it's funny that you bring up Christian McCaffrey because he actually has a younger brother. And Ed McCaffrey has actually been quoted as saying, you know, when it comes time for his younger son to get up to where he can play either college football or in the PAC Pro League, they're just going to sit down, they're going to have a conversation, and then he's going to let his son make his own personal decision. So it's actually, it could go either way. It all depends on each person's individual situation. Yes, each individual situation.
Yeah, and Ben, I want to talk about something you brought up. You talked about eligibility for the players. Will they be able to come back? And this is a big question that's going on with a lot of college coaches right now. Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, Brett Bielema. They've all talked about the fact that should players be allowed to come back to school if they go undrafted in the NCAA draft? And this is specifically for underclassmen that declare. If they still have eligibility remaining and they go undrafted, there's a chance that they just lose out on their whole football career. But some of these coaches feel that these players should come back. If you have eligibility remaining, do you think that the NFL should allow these players to return to the NCAA?
I mean, I think they should. I don't know if they're going to. I don't know if that's an actual realistic way to look at this situation because we all know how hardcore the NFL can be in this type of situation. So I don't think they want players to look at it as kind of a safety net for them. I think they want the players to be absolutely serious, that they're going to go to the NFL, that they think they're ready for the NFL. And I think that's the type of attitude they want the players coming in. I think they should be able to go back if they want to. If they feel like they're going to be a valuable part of the college team, they can go back and play for them. I don't see an issue with it, but I can see why the NFL has that stance.
Yeah, 107 underclassmen declared for the draft last year, and 30 of those players went undrafted, either defined a contract in free agency right after the draft. Maybe they're still looking for a contract. This year there's 103 underclassmen, so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Austin, do you think that the players should be able to return to the NCAA?
I really like what the NBA has done as far as their draft, their new setup, because, you know, they come in, they let the players come in, they work out for the teams, they go to the combine, they do whatever, and then the teams tell them, you know, if you were to enter the draft, you would be a first-round pick, you'd be a second-round pick, and then that allows the player to make their own decision based on the info that they've been given. So if the NFL really wanted to help boost their brand, help boost their talent, what they do is they'd let the players come in and go to the combine and, you know, do interviews with teams and everything. And then if the teams say, hey, we're probably not going to draft you, you might want to go back, then it gives them the freedom to go back. It'll help boost college football as well because college football won't lose as many talented players that might not necessarily be ready for the NFL.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up that point because there was actually the NFL implemented a rule with the NCAA starting this February. I mean, right now in this month, I guess, when pro days start to commence for all colleges, they're going to allow 5 underclassmen to participate in pro days. And they can apply, the schools can apply for more if they believe that they have the right amount of players that might actually be talented enough to go to the NFL. 5 underclassmen can participate in pro days, and they'll get full evaluations from draft scouts. And this is going to be in anticipation of going into the 2018 NFL draft. So this is going to give players a much better chance to really understand exactly do they have what it takes to make it to the NFL. It's pretty much as simple as that.
And I think that's great. I think as long as any team or any conference can, any league actually, can set up a system where they get the best product out there, I don't understand why they wouldn't want more players to take that chance to see if they're good enough, because once the player knows if they're not good enough, then if they were going to get drafted anyway, you're not getting the best product as a team and as a league. So it benefits both the player and the league. I don't know why they wouldn't even thought of this beforehand.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense to me. I feel like if you're elite enough, then you should be able to go right to the NFL. And, you talk about players like Marcus Lattimore and Todd Gurley and Nick Chubb. They all suffered pretty freak injuries during their time in college. And this is after they had successful seasons. Nick Chubb, big breakout season in place of Todd Gurley his freshman year at Georgia. Last year just has this ugly injury. The pictures in my head. It's not good, but, I mean, it pretty much hurt his it really affected him and his ability, whether he's going to get drafted or not. Marcus Lattimore, one of the best college running backs of the past 20 years. Yeah. He dominated at South Carolina. He had another freak injury, tried to make it to the NFL, and he wasn't allowed to go to the NFL after his sophomore season, his real big breakout season, because of the 3-year eligibility rule. You have to be 3 years removed from high school. So do you think that, I don't know if it should be a special case, but in the fact, in the meaning that a player has like a really big breakout season, you brought up Jadeveon Clowney or someone like Marcus Lattimore, should they be allowed to declare a little bit earlier or find a different situation that's going to take them away from football and put them in a way that's going to protect them in case anything like that happens?
Well, the thing is that, if I think it's a systematic thing with the NFL, really, because the thing is that they don't allow guys to come in until after 3 years. So they're, basically they're taking guys and they're making them wait. They're putting, they're going out there and they're risking their livelihood, basically. These guys could be making millions of dollars, but in all reality, they're just, they're in college, they're playing college ball, and if they're not taking their classes serious and stuff, they might even be wasting their time, really. So you need to give guys the opportunity to go out and get their money because they're going to age, and once you age, you can't make that money anymore.
On the flip side of that, I think you kind of have to take a little bit into account how small some of these guys are coming out of high school, too. I mean, if you remember, I was a tiny kid coming out of high school. There's a lot of people.
You're a tiny kid now.
I'm a tiny kid now, too. But there's a lot of small people, both in height and weight and muscle mass and stuff like that. So you come out of high school and you're small and you go to the NFL, you are going to be eaten alive. So college you could see as being a chance for a player to bulk up, get a sense for how big a lot of these players are going to be, and get a sense for what they have to do to not injure themselves, get trained by some of the best trainers in the country, learn how to take care of the body. Stepping from high school to the NFL may be detrimental to a lot of these players' health.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that subject in one of the episodes in last season's for the toss-up last semester, so we covered all that stuff. We won't go into it. Let's just wrap things up, Be sure to continue the discussion on our Twitter page and on Facebook at IUSTV Sports. You can always give any suggestions for the show and ask any questions that you might have. Toss it up. Find out if we'll catch it. Stay sweet, and we'll see you next week.